Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of Monday, September 27th. I did it. I said the day again. It's unimportant in introductions such as this. What is important is Mr. No Sudden Move himself, Matt Amberg.
I won't suddenly move.
Confirmed.
I'll move with purpose and very sloth-like.
On Book Club for Movies this week, where we do watch one movie a week and then invite you to do the same and talk to us about it on Facebook or Twitter or podcast at bookclubformovies.com. This week, we are doing No Sudden Move. Matt does a hand-drawn synopsis.
That's right.
Every single time.
That's right.
This time is no different. Start showing the pictures now.
Sure.
And narrating them as you go.
Yeah, and that is what this is. It's a bunch of symbols. It's not really decipherable to...
You're right.
Yeah.
I don't... Oh, that one's dirty.
Yes, and it's because this movie, No Sudden Move, coming at you an hour and 55 minutes, written by Ed, Bill, and Ted Everything Solomon.
I just saw that. I'm like, Ed Solomon?
Yeah.
The Ed Solomon it was, yeah.
Ed Solomon, director, writer of such films as Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Men in Black. Directed by Steven Soderbergh, starring Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro, Brendan Fraser, Kieran Culkin, John Hamm, Amy Siemens, Julia Fox, David Harbour, and this is your Book Club for a Movie synopsis for No Sudden Move. In the 1950s, a group of criminals' best laid plans go awry, forcing them to figure out who, how, what, and why. The where, not as important in this one.
Yeah, depends on who you ask. I'm surprised you had that much ready to go. I feel like you finished watching this from literally the moment right now I am speaking, unedited, about 10 minutes ago.
That is fairly accurate, yes.
Okay. Which, this is going to then be the show with the greatest differential between us two, I think, of having watched the movie. Because I watched this to be ready to go. Actually, no, I think I watched this to be ready to go, 3 weeks ago? And then we didn't do a show. And then we did Shang-Chi instead of No Sudden Move. So I think I watched it 3 weeks ago, and you watched it 10 minutes ago. So...
But the best part is that between the two of us, we will definitely still get things wrong, and almost certainly, maybe come to a conclusion. Those are the only things I can come to an agreement.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll go with that.
See, and there we go. We've already come to a conclusion. We agreed. That concluded that. And once again, a point for Mr. Matthew. Thank you.
You're right. The Patreon, once again, is... No, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Oh my gosh. Come on. Quiet down. Good gravy.
Also maybe I don't know if it's a first. Actually, at the best, it's also a tie. I think Steven Soderbergh might be one of the directors we've done the most shows on. Does that sound about right?
Oh, it sure. See,
not cutting that out.
Nope, my brain had a complete short circuit. You might be right.
I know we did Logan Lucky, and then I think we even did that before the Limey somehow.
Potentially, because you hadn't seen the Limey yet.
I had not, but also if I were to put those movies in an order, it would not be Logan Lucky first, as much as I was okay with that film.
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you. When it comes to Soderbergh, the Limey is probably my favorite movie of his.
I might think, oh gosh, we're going to have to go through. Okay. Rather than go through every movie he's done, I think we've also had a fair amount of talk on Ocean's 11.
Yes.
I think I even went through the movies. I think you went through the movies. So yeah, but I've never done a show. But still, we've talked about him a lot. And I think one of the reasons I love his work the most came to me during this movie, which I actually didn't take a ton of notes for, strangely enough. But I think what I like about Soderbergh is that he's almost like the filmmaker that never grew up, right? I feel like I knew some of, or was some of him in film school. And whereas a lot of creators will put out some of that early film school type work, they eventually graduate into something a little more palatable. I feel like experimentation goes by the wayside at some point, for better or worse, who can say. But Soderbergh to me has always been somebody that's seemed to keep that gene within him, or just have respected it, or even found a way to mature it. Because a lot of times I feel like that's what's left behind, because the more you do it, and in certain ways that you do it, it just comes off as sometimes pretentious, especially if you've done it so often or something. And there are obvious exceptions to this, especially if we don't, do mainstream movies as often as we do. But with Soderbergh, to me, he seems like the guy that never grew up in that way, but in a more immediate way than I can think of with probably any other director. Like, I don't see his stuff or his experiments and think, man, like, this is just, if not literally beyond me, like beyond any creative endeavor I might have. Like, tell me if this ever happens to you, actually. Tell me if you've ever seen a film and it's been so good that afterwards you almost feel worse about yourself.
Oh, dude, every piece of there is. I can absolutely give you a handful of. I could give you one of each. A movie. I could definitely give you music. I could give you a comic book. I can give you all of those where I go, well, there's no point in my existence.
It's such a like self-serving and gross. It's like the worst.
Totally.
On the one hand, you are so excited and changed by this piece of work, but on the other hand, you're selfishly like, everything I do is done. I mean, it's stupid. I get that much,
And thankfully, I think the thing is, I am stupid, so it fits. That's why I'm able to accept it and just kind of continue on in this my 40s, or as I like to call them, boy, death is coming sooner than later.
That has to actually been, to some extent, my coping mechanism as well, is that, you know what?
I'm just craving it at this point.
None of us are as good as any of us.
I hug my wife. I pet my dogs. I sit in the shower and I think, yeah.
And you do the Terminator thing again. And then you're fine.
It's really fun.
Okay.
It's really fun. That one, and I like to do the Friday the 13th part. It's 5 or 6. I don't remember which one, which is shame on me for wieners. But there's one where these two idiots try to resurrect Jason. He's dead, and they resurrect him with like a he ends up getting resurrected via a lightning bolt. It's stupid. But one of the guys, they're like, huh, 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 and then he punches him through his like stomach and is like holding his like heart and everything through his. And so they show the guy's face and he's just going, and he's just spitting blood out. And I like to do that one with the water.
Okay. I'm like, at what point does it become the thing that you like to do?
Yeah.
Because none of these sound like something. And then I like to punch him in the chest.
Yeah. I like to fill my mouth up with water and then get punched in the stomach.
We should do a show on just easy movie things that you can do to make your life better. I think we've actually said them all already, besides also Flashdance in the chair. But
okay, I am 100% into this. However, I think we're gonna have to touch on this at the very end, because that definitely fits into the special podcast.
Okay, well, the whole reason I started that line of terribly self-indulgent thinking is because Soderbergh actually doesn't do that to me for whatever reason.
You're like, I could definitely do this job.
Well, I mean, I don't even think I go that far, right?
No. I actually think I understand what you're saying, though. But I continue. But I think I know where you're.
He stays accessible in a way that I feel like a lot of other creators don't, for a lot of different reasons. I mean, like I said, with some of those experiments, he obviously, how many films ago did he do an iPhone movie? Even, like it wasn't that long ago.
Oh yeah, Unsane.
Yeah, there you go. And that was after. In fact, arguably, Ocean's 11, his biggest mainstream thing, was decades ago, it seems like. So.
By the way, that movie is it's on Amazon. So if you want to watch it, it was there when I watched it anyways. That movie, if you didn't know it was shot on an iPhone, you would have no idea. It looks better than Tangerine did, and Tangerine still didn't look like it was shot on an iPhone. Tangerine did look like it was shot on like a little handy. Like, it looked like it was shot on something more, but not a ton more. And this came out, I think, a year or two after Tangerine did.
Okay.
So it was after that had already been done, and like the whole concept of it had been hit. And his looks way better. It was on like an iPhone 8 or 7 or something. So it wasn't.
And I like it too. I mean, I don't know a lot about Tangerine, but I know that Soderbergh often does all of his stuff top to bottom, even sometimes promotion. And I forget, there was a movie that the experimental side was more on distribution than it was on anything else. And now I can't remember what it was, but.
Was it the Girlfriend Experience, maybe?
Actually, it might have been Logan Lucky. Yeah, I think it was, now that I think about it. And I don't know the specifics, so I don't even know why I'm talking about that. But It is to say that I like Steven Soderbergh and how immediately accessible even some of his experimental stuff is, for whatever reason. Again, we're deep into subjectivity at every moment of the day over here on Book Club for Movies.
Every single thing. But what I want to say actually in response to that, before you continue on, is that number one, I agree with you. I think Soderbergh has this really unique sense about him, and there are only a handful of directors that I feel like there is an accessibility about them, but in figuring that out for themselves, they also definitely have a feel and a style unto themselves that you couldn't replicate if you really tried. And the two people that jump out, when I think about stuff like this, are Michael Mann, who I think even in the grandest movie that he's made, there's a visual aspect to it, but I think that there's a grounding to the way he films, and if you have like almost an elevated sense of filmmaking itself, that you can go, oh man, like there's an accessibility there. I don't think his movies are hard to get into. I think they can be harder to maybe nail down, but overall I think he's got that feel. And the other person that I think absolutely nails this is Sam Raimi. I think even his Spider-Man movies, which are like, giving him the biggest budget possible, there is still something in the way that he obviously has his style with the super close-ups and the zoom aspect. He loves doing his steady cam shots and stuff, his dolly work, but the overall like accessibility to his work, it feels like, to me, again, and I don't mean this reductively even a little bit, but I think Soderbergh has this greater than any of them. I think he makes it so you go, that was a good movie. I could do that. Like I want to do that. It's not, and it's different than say a Wes Anderson where you go, I want to do that. Somebody sees that and they say, I want to make movies like this. That is a special thing. That's not just film, that's a different type of art. Like that's art within art. Soderbergh to me is, he makes, film is his art, and he figured out a way to make it simplified so that the language of his film is easy for everybody to digest. And it's, but remaining unique to him. Like I actually mentioned this to Beth when the movie started. I had to take the movie kicks off immediately with music. I
love it. Immediately I'm so into this movie.
Yeah. You get music, you get big, bold lettering. It's not simple script. It's big, bold scripting for all of the credits. And it's you're immediately given, okay, I kind of understand where I'm at. You got it's a panning shot following Don Cheadle walking. The minute it started, it was one of those like, oh, dude, this is a Soderbergh movie. Like it felt like that. I remember Logan Lucky had that feeling, and I remember especially the Oceans movie. I think the Oceans films kind of solidified it a little bit. But you go back and there's just a thing to the way maybe it's his openings. I don't know. There's something to it where I just knew it was him. It's him. It's Soderbergh. Okay, cool. I know what I'm in for. I'm in for a well-directed piece. Let's see what the writer of Men in Black and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure can do for us.
Yeah, I was disappointed to see Ed Solomon also wrote Men in Black, because I forgot, and also it's just going to further confuse my Barry Sonnenfeld.
Yes,
yeah. So that's only going to get worse. But speaking of the beginning of this movie and how much I was into it immediately, like you said, signature or not, I think I would have been into it, because it is big and bold and it's beautiful for everything from music, like you mentioned, to color grading. I just loved everything about how it looked. And it's just also perfectly laconic in that There's just no fluff about it, right? It's
he does
everything that you need.
He does.
Period.
He does the opposite of just film it. Let the camera go. We'll get it.
Oops, I left the camera on.
Yes.
No, yeah, we gave that to Soderbergh.
No. But it's like this is the opposite of that. Like he's not doing that. The oops, I left the camera on. It feels like I don't know. This
not
didn't feel
entirely.
like that. This didn't feel like that to me.
It not entirely. I think what I'm trying to define is oops, I left the camera on, again, that being his signature style. Because yeah, we are just following Don Cheadle walking down the street, but there's just nothing extra to it, even though there is so much about it. I don't
Laconic is actually a great, I think, descriptor for his film style.
It's just almost a strange thing to say also because it still has that experimental flavor about it. You know, I don't know what lens he used. I should have looked it up since I'm going to mention it. But it's almost fisheye, like it's such a wide angle that it's curving at the edges, you know, especially when he does do panning shots. It kind of sucks up the edges of the frame real quick.
Yep.
I don't know if that's because he wanted, you know, something near Coke bottle or something like that. I don't even know if it is. Yeah, it's supposed to be representative of the era. It's just one of those choices that you're like, oh, this works perfect. Like it's almost one of those visionary choices where that's just how it appears. Like when you create something, that's just how it was at the beginning in your head. So that's how you did it. Not because somebody was like, oh, do this or do that, or even you thought about it that much. This is just how it existed, how you were meant to give it life as almost just a conduit even. This is getting real. This is the problem. We've talked about Patreon too much already. I've been so deep into like what book club for movies means in the process of trying to launch this to a wider audience or whatever, that I'm just all the way down the rabbit hole on everything at this point. Like if I had a problem with overanalyzing like stuff that didn't deserve it, like imagine when this might even. I'm just gonna go everywhere. So
yeah, you are a bouncy rubber ball today.
I am. It's so great.
Fun.
You know, it's also probably preferable to going through the plot to this movie bit by bit because it's not simple. I mean, it's A to B to C, but there's a lot of it's like A to B to C to D to Z. You know, right, there's a lot. So
it is very much the Onion type of movie where it's not complex overall, like you said, but it does just like it is one of those things where you're like every time you think, okay, I understand this is kind of the chain of events. I get that. Now I understand all the people involved. Oh, wait. Okay. Another layer comes off. You're like, okay, so now one more person is involved. And now one more. So it just kind of keeps peeling back until you do get to a rich oniony center that we're going to spoil right about now. The rich oniony center here. I don't know how I didn't see this coming. I didn't look up anything about...
no, me neither, yeah.
I didn't look up anything about the movie outside of I remember seeing a trailer for it, and I remember cutting the trailer off about halfway through like I've been doing lately because they just... Because
you don't want to know the whole movie?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually had to do it with something else because that just came out that I just saw this weekend. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what this is. I don't want to know anymore, and it'll ruin everything. I know it will. I know this trailer.
Here's how it ends.
Yeah. No. I didn't know anything going into this, other than like I said, the bit of trailer, and so the kind of rich, creamy, oniony, gross center ends up being Matt Damon. Which I just like I finally went like, okay, he's not in the credits, he's not listed. I don't know if he's even listed at IMDb, but his appearance was both a surprise that was very amusing to me, and also it was just such a like all right, are we done now? How many more layers up are we going to go? Who's above Matt Damon now? Is it going to be Ben Affleck? It was...
Well, some of what you're seeing actually has to do with COVID. This was recast a few different times because production was delayed in the middle of COVID. In fact, at some point we lost Sebastian Stan, John Cena, and George Clooney. Were originally going to do. Yeah, I can't even pick out what roles they would have been, those actors. Yeah.
Like, that movie is very different. Now, in my head, I just want the John Cena role to be the the Ray Liotta role.
Oh, okay.
That
was the only one that makes sense. You're right. Sorry, I haven't even seen Suicide Squad, and I just assumed that John Cena is Peacekeeper from here on out. Peacemaker.
It's all good.
Pacemaker.
Pace Piecer. His first name is Jerry.
Oh, okay.
Jerry and my pacemaker.
So, yeah, the Damon thing, I mean, his character is at the center. In fact, a lot of his dialogue, I think, is at the center of what I would like to actually talk about when it comes to the larger themes of the film.
Sure.
Let's just say, as far as the actual plot goes, that again, Onionies and whatever's, it's a heist movie where Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro are hired by Brendan Fraser to hold a family
babysit. They're supposed to babysit a family. Yeah. So they're supposed to hold David Harbour's family.
David Harbour, that's the word I was looking at.
While Kieran Culkin takes David Harbour back to his building where he works. He does numbers for, we don't know what yet. We just know that there's some document.
Yeah. Okay. That was also going to be one of my questions, because the way this movie went, I was like, this could have happened. And then you find out that David Harbour works for GM, and I was like, oh, this totally could have happened. And then at the end, there's the whole, pre-credits, like, this is what happened to everybody that you love in every movie. And then you're like, oh, this actually did happen in some way.
Yes.
We don't know exactly how, but that, I think we'll get there when we talk about the larger themes. But yes, they are to hold David Harbour's family hostage while David Harbour goes and gets a piece of information from GM that he turns out not being able to get. So they basically have to clean up the situation. The people that hired them start coming after them. Don Cheadle's still in it, trying to get out of this in some way or get something out of it. So that's the movie. That's the plot, for better or worse. Maybe we'll explain stuff here and there as we want to talk about certain things. But the larger themes, I think, at play that do come out during that Matt Damon spot, because eventually Matt Damon's at the top of the totem pole, would you say here?
Yeah. He ostensibly makes himself out to be, he was like one of the original investors with Ford. And then he realized that investing in individual automakers was stupid when he should be investing in the entirety of the auto industry. So the character is basically just a mogul that is playing all of the he's playing the big four against each other. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. He's playing them together and trying to keep everybody out, so that because what they don't want to do is this is actually, the whole movie is built around the requirement of the catalytic converter and or the
invention of a catalytic converter that will reduce pollution.
Right. So, it was about pollution, and ultimately in the 70s when they started requiring it. So the movie is the basically,
companies tried to suppress it for as long as they could.
Right.
I just thought Matt Damon was a GM bigwig or something like that.
No.
You're saying
he doesn't work for any of the individual corporations.
Interesting.
But he knows about this and does not want it to get out, does not want it to be known, because, it's easier for them to do what they want to do.
Right. That they don't want to have to
less regulation,
the regulations and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So why that meetup though is finally interesting is because of after everything they've done, because they go through a lot to get to this point. They've basically contacted everybody up the chain. Speaking of Don Cheadle, and for the most part, Benicio del Toro, Kieran Culkin gets offed early on because he's like the wild card from the start, right? So he was going to murder and his way out of everything, when stuff started to go bad.
Which he was told to do by Brendan Fraser.
Right. Yes. And I think Cheadle knew, or he got Cheadle's just smart enough.
No.
Also.
So.
Okay. All right. No, this is not what I want. Basically, why the Matt Damon stuff to me was one of the better payoffs is because all of his dialogue has to do with money, essentially. Like Don Cheadle has spent the entire movie, Benicio del Toro has spent the entire movie, it's all for money. I mean, yes, Don Cheadle has this grander design of he needs the money to get out of town, to kind of get out of the business, you get the feeling, because he's made enough enemies or is just tired of it or whatever, so he takes this one last job. Benicio del Toro, you don't get that feel. You get Benicio del Toro is the career gangster. He's full of himself enough to do this as long as he can. Anyway, they go through all of these different stages of trying to get this to work, to trying to get money. And eventually it ends up with them at Matt Damon's desk, and they get the money from him, but Damon's like, what do I care? Like, I always have more money. In fact, this is nothing.
And he calls out, to a degree that he never has to worry about that stuff, and that it's just none of it matters to him. I
wish I would have honestly, written down more of what he said exactly, because it is, to me, the meat and potatoes of the thing. It's where you got more out of it. The whole thing is a very fun romp. It's a really good adventure. It's a really good heist movie. It's a really good, it's in the vein of Ocean's 11. Like, Soderbergh can do this and do it well. And he did it again, basically, for sure. Just straight up plot wise, you might have issues. We'll get there. But when it comes to the end and he does start to kind of lay it all on the table, and Damon starts talking about how this is nothing to him. Everything that they've spent the entire movie trying to get just a little bit is nothing to him. And eventually what happens is that, we forgot to mention John Hamm plays the FBI agent in this thing, the agent of the system, even, if you will, that is trying to figure out what happened with David Harbour's family, because David Harbour's family begins to tell the lie, so that for whatever reason or not. And eventually that falls apart, and John Hamm is able to recoup all of the money from these different areas, because they've, like I said, gone through the chain and tried to get payouts at different spots and come out with, I don't know how much, like, there's very distinct amounts of money from different places. You can go to Wikipedia if you want, but at the end it comes together with Cheadle, who's kind of in the pocket of another gangster who's about to take him out, and they bump up against the FBI, who has tracked them down to this moment. And the gangster that has Cheadle basically bargains his way out by giving the FBI agent $50,000 and saying, I'll take care of Cheadle from here. You don't even have to worry about him. So the FBI agent goes for that, but in the process seizes all of the money that's been going around, returns it to Matt Damon.
Yep.
And is like, here you go, I found your money. And then also gives to him another, I forget how he puts it, here's another $50,000 that also presented itself for some.
It also presented itself.
He gave himself his bribe, the bribe that he got and did the thing for, and is like, also here's this money. And at that point, I'm just like,
and then the ultimate part of that is him handing all that back. And Matt Damon looking at him while he's basically being a miser. He's seriously leaning over his desk, pulling his money in. He's holding the envelope, and he goes, I wish I could cut you into a little bit of this. And Hamm looks at him and goes, hey, it's your money. And Matt Damon just looks at him and goes, yeah. But why don't you grab one of those bottles over there of booze? They're real good. The one on the end cost $88.
And Hamm's character is into it. He's like, whoa, I made out.
All right.
He's like, and to me, it's just this perfect encapsulation of the warped sense of justice that goes around nowadays, that has all of these, this incredible wealth disparity with all of these just complete Matt Damon's at the top, right? That, not Matt Damon in real life, Matt Damon's character, although I'm sure Matt Damon's doing fine right now, but has all these people at the top and all of these people at the bottom. This is the part that I never got. This is as warped as it gets. All these people at the bottom fighting for those people at the top. That is the grift to me, right?
A huge chunk of it too is brought up just straight up when Cheadle mentions redlining to Matt Damon, and Matt Damon says, hey man, the world is landscaping itself. The country is landscaping itself. I'm just reaping the river or something.
Right.
And it's like, it's one of those perfect, because legitimately the entire time this movie is going on, Don Cheadle's entire goal is to just leave. And it's all he wants out of all of this after getting out of jail. He just wants the $5,000 that he was promised. He doesn't want $375,000.
That's right. Yeah.
He doesn't want $50,000. He just wants the $5,000. And at the end of the movie, right after that payoff occurs, it's Bill Duke from friggin' Predator and like 1,000 other movies. Cheadle ends up owing Bill Duke money, and that's kind of part of the thing, is that he owed him 25 grand, which is why he kept trying to get more money. At the end of this, Bill Duke's character finally says, he basically gives him the, all right, look, what do you want at it? What do you want? And Cheadle says, I just want my 5 grand. And he goes, okay, you just want what's yours. Here you go. And that's the end. And Cheadle gets to walk away, and everything is scot-free. He can't stay. It's, very Pulp Fiction. He can't live in the, he's lost his LA privileges. He lost his Detroit privileges. But then the movie ends kind of the way it starts, with following Cheadle as he's walking away, which is cool. It's good.
It is. And because he's our hero. He's the guy that just wants what's his. He doesn't want everybody else's. And speaking of being in Soderbergh's wheelhouse, but I think it's also, if I'm going to hear criticisms about this, I feel like it's going to be the same ones I hear, and maybe it's just me, but for Ocean's 11 so often, I hear about these groups that are like, well, see what they did. They made the bad guys the good guys. And I'm like, number one, they've never read Robin Hood, I guess, for the most part, but also that Andy Garcia is the real good guy in that film. Like,
right.
Yes. It's bizarre to me that they would, again, look at something like this. And this is, I mean, it's even more subtle probably with No Sudden Move. So I could see people watching it and being like, well, Matt Damon was right. It was his money.
When you're saying that the good guys are the guys who polluted and killed the earth,
right? Yes. I'm like, come on! Like, your sense of justice must incorporate more than just what is handed down by, also, again, the system, John Hamm's system, that brings all the money back to Matt Damon without doing a thing anyways, like
the entire time he's like I did it. He's like a Labrador, he's like, look what I did, Dad, look what I did, can I get a treat? I'm gonna get one. Yeah.
So I don't know, I haven't heard any such criticisms for this, but I could see them being levied in the same way. That just
one of the other things this movie touches on, and kind of a central portion of it is, so the David Harbour character is literally supposed to be the middle class guy. Sure. He's got the family, he's got the job that he, quote unquote, in the 50s, I love going to my job. What do? I push numbers around. That's what he says. Like, right? He's just, he does that simple thing. And his family life is clearly not great. He's trying to get up the courage to basically end his marriage because he's cheating on her with the secretary of his boss, and he's not quite ready to do it, and he was gonna do it, and then they couldn't do it. But there's a moment when John Hamm, after everything has occurred, they kind of force the family to play along, Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro, with what goes on, and kind of saying that they killed Kieran Culkin in self-defense, and so that Cheadle and Del Toro could figure it out. And John Hamm is interviewing the wife, where he says, is there any reason you can think of this man would be targeting your family? And his wife is sitting there, and she smokes all the time, and she just looks at him, takes a drag off her cigarette, and goes, I don't know, he hates happiness. And she takes a drag off her cigarette, and it's like, and that's the end of it. But it's a perfect encapsulation of what that character is going through, right? Of what they're all going through, that family. And it's that just, of course, we're the happiest family on the block. We're definitely extremely miserable and everything is being held together by strings. And I thought it was just a great delivery and a great line overall.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that I could say that probably about every character and situation. For how little they all say, you just immediately understand what person they are. And maybe it's just because he knows. I mean, he did this in Oceans again, speaking of using a lot of actors and kind of being able to quickly surmise like who they are and deliver that in a way that immediately, so that you can get on with the rest. So he does that again for sure here.
I think the main criticism that I've got to levy against this movie, though, is while overall I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was super fun. I totally recommend watching it. I will say I think it falls apart in the third act. the plot and the writing kind of, it just jumbles and falls apart. Like it feels like Ed Solomon wrote himself into a corner or something and then went, well, I guess I could do this, and then that can lead to that. And I mean, I guess logically it makes sense how he came together, and the movie does make sense. It's not that that's the issue. It's just that I feel like it started really, really strong. The kidnapping, the murder. Okay, we're meeting up with these characters. Now the family's involved. This. And then it just kept going. And the third act, it just keeps going. Like, it's not just Brendan Fraser. Now you've got Ray Liotta and Brendan Fraser. And now there's not just him. Now you've got this other guy from Studebaker that you've got to think about. And then there's Matt Damon. And it's just like, I feel like there's something tighter that could have been done here that would have told the story also. And while I think that the Damon, we mentioned at the beginning, the Damon stuff does pay off, and it's pretty well written. I just feel that it was that beginning and most of the second act were strong, and then it just starts to taper off on the quality. You get the really good Damon bit, and then the rest of it's just.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. I don't think the ending was as strong as the beginning, but for as many different elements as there, I mean, endings are hard, like to me, yeah, he probably just had some issues tying it all up. And I'll admit, this has nothing to do with the fact that I watched it 3 weeks ago. I think I've read the plot synopsis on Wikipedia more than I have for any other movie that we've done in the past. And the Matt Damon thing is a good example. Like I said, I thought he was a GM guy. Like, there are certainly some things that I did not glean the first time around without, I had to look up after the fact and be like, okay, what? And even then you can read the very detailed and quick plot synopsis on Wikipedia. And I'm still not positive the path that all that money took to get to where it went. So yeah, the ending isn't perfect, but I will agree also, like you said, I wasn't like completely lost. And maybe it's because I was gleaning so much from that, the thematic payoff with Matt Damon and all that I was like, oh, this is good. But
it's not that I'm not concerned about even some of the details. I guess I feel like it's because I didn't necessarily think it was convoluted. But I feel like it's trying to borderline get there. So I don't know. It was just something about that lot third to keep act, track of. And it just, but it just drops. It's the everything kind of drops a little bit. I didn't find the third act to be as satisfying as, say, the Ocean's third act. Like the reveal for the Ocean's third act, that's amazing. The reveal here, like it's like Ocean's Light in how they do the kind of
Ocean's 13 or something,
right? Like... Yeah. Ocean's 7, Ocean's 9. It can't be Ocean's 8 because that was.
I was gonna say okay.
But no, yeah. Overall, I thought it was a cool flick. Great to see. I'm all in on the Renaissance. Give me Brendan Fraser all day long.
Dude, how many times? That's my only critique from the movie. How many times am I gonna have to watch Brendan Fraser die this year? It's two is too many.
Is Fraser gonna be the new Bean?
I watched a Bean movie too, and a Matt Damon movie. A Bean and a Matt Damon. A Bean Damon.
Did Bean die?
I'm not going to talk about it. No, he didn't.
That's not a good movie.
You're okay. Maybe I don't have to talk about it. Actually,
see,
no sudden move worth a watch.
It's worth a sudden move to your couch to watch it.
Yes, it's worth 593 sudden moves stars
out of 499. Wait, 589. There, let's go with that.
I think that's still over. We broke the model.
40.
Go watch No Sudden Move.
It's 40 stars.
It's
out
of 35.
11.
No, wait, I went backwards again. Out of 49.
Niner. It's gonna be. Hey, you know what? Okay, let us know what you think the star level should be for this one. I'm gonna do it this time, Ryan. I got it. So you can hit us up. Podcast at bookclubformovies.com. We're there. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're also going to be doing something. It's crazy. We're going to interrupt this show for a very important interruption. It's.
I don't even know how much is this the Patreon?
It's every time. Come on, man. Yes.
we're talking about Patreon. We are doing a Patreon, and we have more to say about it when it is finished.
It's coming, though.
It is coming. We did a meeting where we talked about it and wrote a document in a meeting.
MEAT.
And I've been plugging that into Patreon in a way, and then I'm going to send it to Matt, and he's going to approve or fix it, and then it will be launched, and we will give the full spiel next week.
Yeah, it's but you know, just it's pretty exciting. I know I'm very excited about it. We've got some cool stuff that's coming up, and we're gonna look. I admittedly, for all of you viewers out there that have been with us since the beginning, you know, we love you, and thank you so much for sticking with us. It's gonna get pricey, and you're gonna need to fork.
It is not.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that, but it's, you know, look. You know just as well as we do how much we're worth, and don't watch it. Okay, number one, on that, you just go ahead and watch it. You know, don't be doing that penny fart noise. No.
Okay.
No, but for real, I'm very excited about it. I'm gonna say we're very excited because I feel weird. Like if
yeah, no, that's fine. Go for it.
We're excited about we've got we have some cool ideas in store for subscriptions, for subscribers, for Patreons. We're looking forward to unveiling more stuff and building out as we continue on this journey upon planet Earth.
Thought you were going to say pigs in space for a second,
pigs
but I think that might still work.
Space.
Yeah. So come back next week where we explain that actually. Also come back next week for the beginning of the Wieners. Am I right?
That's right, everybody. It's time to get spooky.
Every year we've christened October as October Ween, where we watch a bunch of movies that we affectionately call Wieners, and again, invite you all to do the same. I know we have some left over from last year, even. I know I still haven't. Like, this is the problem with doing Wieners, with having an October Ween, is that I don't watch a lot of Wieners during the year anymore. I pile them up for October. I want to tell you, because we don't know what movies we're going to do. I know we've left The Conjuring kind of dangling, and there's even been another entry since. So we've got 2 Conjurings. I know if we're going down the Wan hole, we've got Insidious, and there's plenty of choices. But I want to mention the 2 things I have in store that I've been working on with none of, I wasn't expecting any of them to be shows. That's up to Matt. But this is what's going to at least come up at one point during the wean time, is that I've done 2 things to my daughter. One of them being, I found the documentary,
yes.
the fake documentary attached to the Blair Witch movie, which in talking about, I feel like I'll also talk about my own experience, where I believe for the most part, I was at least partially fooled by this documentary as well.
I will absolutely go into all you want me to on that for
okay,
where I
okay.
came from. Totally happy to talk about that. I've got great memories of it.
So what I've done, though, is shown that to my daughter as if it were real. And now I am going to then say, hey, they found the tape that those kids took into the forest with them, and we're going to watch the Blair Witch movie as if it were real and see how that goes. So that'll be story number 1. Story number 2, also very similar now that I think about it. We've recently rewatched Apollo 13, which I don't think I'd seen since it came out, and also Apollo 11, which I had never seen, which is fantastic. But between recreations and documentaries, we are now also going to watch Apollo 18, which I've never heard a good thing about. But again, telling her that it's more of a recreation like Apollo 13 was, and we'll see how far I get with that until she doesn't trust me at all anymore.
Well, I am certainly open to any suggestions. I'm going to be putting together a list here over the next couple of days to add on to the one that I have. And I will say, Ryan, that the evolution of your scaring your daughter thing you may want to consider Paranormal Activity.
Right, yeah, that I can see Blair Witch leading into all sorts of found footage.
Well, I would say that for the time and everything that the right way to go would be Paranormal Activity. It is genuinely got some scare to it. It's practically it's very Blair Witchy.
I do. No, I like Paranormal Activity. I also like it because it operates on two different levels. There's a riff tracks for it that upon watching it, you're like, whoa, like, cause I watched it at first and liked it and was like, oh, this is a good movie, or, whatever. And then watching the riff tracks, I'm like, wow, this is also just rife with stuff to make fun of. Like, I had no idea. They just opened up a whole new world. So yes, I could see that coming.
Yes.
If not this year, then the next.
But wieners are coming, everybody.
Wieners galore.
Oh God.
Come back next month. We don't know what we're going to start with, but it'll be great.
It will likely be great.
Okay. So after all of that, good gosh, we're still under an hour. We could still have a rest of the show. That's what's so great about us.
Do you want to do the rest of the show? We can do that.
We probably should. It's piling up, but I do have those two that I mentioned last week, the Spiritual Boxer and Paper Tigers, if you want to hear about those.
Yeah,
Considering they have to do with that action movie list that I'm very slowly making my way through nowadays.
I'm super interested in Paper Tigers because that actually popped up on a list for me the other day, and I went, I think this is the one Ryan was going to watch.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of people talking about it, so I just had to watch it. Also, it looked like something my family would enjoy. And why don't I start with that? Yes, Paper Tigers. It's a story about 3 kung fu dudes that used to be very good at it when they were young and grew up into middle-aged guys that are probably not as good at it as they used to be. But okay.
No. This movie. Okay. The synopsis for this movie is 3 former kung fu champions come back into kung fu to get vengeance for their master. That's the synopsis for the movie that's on Netflix, and or Amazon. So go from there.
I think that's why I'm having such a hard time, is because I see that synopsis, and that is honestly not the draw of the movie. Like, I see that's why they would have to sell it with that, because
it's definitely a draw for me.
It is a draw, but it's not the movie. Like, if you go into the movie looking for kind of what that sells to you, I think you might be halfway disappointed. I at least had enough information that I think I was expecting more of a Taika Waititi thing,
Sure.
Kind of jokey in that way. And it's also not that. Like, it's not a laugh a minute. For example, yes, their old master is killed. Yes, there is a mission at hand to kind of find out what happened and find out who killed him. And yes, the movie does culminate with that fight with the villain, but it's not driven by that. Like, that says nothing about why we take up time with just simple conversations over food between these older guys and what their life has been since they were friends. There's a falling out thing between 2 of them when they went to a competition and one of them left the other and something like that. That's also almost doesn't feel like that's closer to the heart, but really, for a film that does put all that stuff in there, it just knows that that's not the movie it is.
Sure.
It's a movie that's about these aging guys' relationships, yes, with kung fu as well as with each other, in a more character-driven way that works. Like, I become interested in each of the characters, regardless of whether or not the scenes or plot is moving at such a clip that I feel compelled about what's going on with this mystery. No, like, if that had been the case, I feel like it would have been a bigger failure, because it's not where the heart of the film was at. It would have been like, here's why this can be good. Let's focus on the thing that, people want to see or whatever. It's something more.
It's a movie about relationships.
Sure.
And it's about relationships, about coming to grips with who you were and who you are and who you can become all through the guise of a ridiculous kung fu film where they're trying to save their master.
But okay, why it's also good is because those parts are also good. Like, this movie does action comedy Probably better than I've seen in a bit, not counting the, classic, Drunken Master.
Not counting all the hilarious things that I've watched in the past month.
I feel like I haven't seen a lot of examples of this recently.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's because they put the comedy into the action. It's not just that they're telling jokes while they do it. It's that they're thinking up moves and ways. It's inventive with its choreography.
So they're having fun with the choreography,
yes.
as opposed to being sticklers.
And yes,
that's fun
and smart. And yes, it's good. It's cool. And that final fight, it is almost so good it doesn't belong with what came before it, but they do tie it back in well enough. And since they know you're there for kung fu, you're like, well, that's still freaking rad. So
in the final fight, do we find out that their real names are Guy, Cody, and Hager?
No, we do not.
Dang it!
So the other movie, Spiritual Boxer, I don't know if...
No, what is it? I don't know anything about it, so I don't, what hit me?
Well, so Spiritual Boxer came about, I watched it because we had watched Drunken Master, and upon looking up the history of that film, it gave some examples, because Drunken Master was kind of like the kung fu comedy that hit, and it was like, also check out these movies, Snake in the Eagle's Shadow or something like that, which was the first Yen Wu-Ping Jackie Chan.
Some of those titles are phenomenal. They're so good.
And different because they have several titles to them. In fact, the Spiritual Boxer is also called something else that I can't remember, but the Spiritual Boxer was a title that was given as kind of a precursor to the kung fu comedy that wasn't done by Yen Wu-Ping or Jackie Chan for that matter, but turns out was done by, and his name is different on Wikipedia than it is on IMDb, and I think I've called him by his IMDb often, and I'm kind of edging towards the Wikipedia stuff for whatever reason, but Lau Kar-leung, who, and this is the other thing we talked about, the 5 Deadly Venoms.
Yeah, that was a cool movie.
Yeah, so the director of that, Cheng Che, was apparently at the forefront of kind of the kung fu boom, when the wuxia epics became more kung fu focused. I guess Cheng Che was there with a lot of his films, and he had a fight choreographer by the name of Lau Kar-leung, and his first movie was The Spiritual Boxer. And I knew about him because he's the guy that's done the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. And I forget, there's a few others. Dirty Ho, I think I've already mentioned.
Yeah.
So he is a name, but I didn't know this was going to be his first. So basically I went back and watched this as kind of a first-ish kung fu comedy, and it's good. In fact, I would say it looks somehow better than Dirty Ho, which came many years later. Not many, but 5 to 10 years later. So it's a beautiful looking film, but also I think I'm finally beginning to tell kind of through the construction if one of these movies is good or not. And I know that sounds weird, but the kung fu is always good and fun, and especially when you're kind of looking at it from an evolutionary point of view. But there are often times where I don't understand how we get from one thing to another. And I don't always know if it's an issue with construction or if I'm just seeing, if it's kind of a lost in translation thing where maybe I'm seeing a well-known trope in Chinese film and not recognizing it because I don't know. Maybe I don't have that language, obviously. So there are times where I don't quite understand. I think I'm beginning to get it with this movie, or it's just a better one of those. I don't know. And to be fair, I guess there could very well be some time dilation going on here as well, because there are movies from the 70s from the US that I can watch and feel the same way about. I don't know if I understand.
I was gonna say there's definitely some of those other ones were from our country where you can watch it and go, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah,
how did I get there?
Because of that, yeah. Why are we now this? Okay, yeah. So I don't know. The Spiritual Boxer,
X-Men: The Last Stand. How did we get there?
that's something altogether different. But yeah, Spiritual Boxer is a good one. It's
nice,
fun. It's on its surface about this dude who is kind of grifting people by pretending to be these different gods, but because he's so good at kung fu, they believe him as he's inhabited by these different ones, and through it he kind of accidentally becomes the savior of a city or town, where there's a mob boss that's kind of
this feels like it needs to be remade by
it could be, yeah,
by Stephen
Colbert.
Yes, Stephen
Soderbergh.
Colbert by Stephen Chow. Like that sounds like it'd be right up a Stephen Chow's lane. Like like that's.
Well, I mean, it's kind of if we were to put Kung Fu Hustle into a genre, it might be kind of, or not a genre, but a type of plot. Yeah, this could be very
definitely
similar.
Inspired
sure.
by. Yeah.
But it's good. It's fun. I would recommend it.
Nice. I will watch that. I have I really enjoy like the Five Deadly Venom stuff like that is really, especially if I can find gory ones like where they have the like the bright red blood is my favorite thing. I
think Chang Che is the way to go then, because
seems like
you showed me that movie and I've been looking his stuff up, and then like I said, I found out that he was kind of the first of one of the early Shaw Brothers Kung Fu boom guys. What other movies of his did I put on the list now? One of them's called Crippled Avengers. And there's another one. Yeah. You'll be hearing more about them. So There you go. And they're all early examples, so they're going to be the next ones I watch.
Right on. Love it.
There you go.
It's exciting.
Did you have any movies? Can you have some movies, please?
I do. I've got a couple. They're both so Netflix did this, like they dumped out a whole mess of documentaries. Like they're called and they're all titled Untold something.
Oh, dude, I'm halfway. Oh, that's not true. I'm 10 minutes into the one you told me to watch.
So the two that I'm going to mention there is Untold, or it might be just called Tread, and maybe it's not part of that. This might be separate. I don't really know. Tread, though, is the looniest, craziest story that is super unique and super interesting and should have been news for days and ends up getting cut off because of other national news that occurs. And you got to watch this documentary. Again, it's called Tread. And all you need to know is, if you have not ever heard of, and I know you're going to think cartoons or Futurama, but if you have never heard of the Killdozer, you're in for a treat.
Oh,
this is
the dude who built his own, or
he turned a bulldozer into a tank,
right?
And
I have heard of that.
Destroyed a town, basically. And the entire story behind it is fascinating, super fascinating, absolutely worth the time. The other thing is this one wasn't Untold. It's called Untold: Crimes and Penalties. And
that's the one you told me to watch, right?
Yeah, and it's
the one. Okay.
It is about this hockey team in Danbury, Connecticut, called the Danbury Trashers. Their logo is a garbage can.
Okay, I haven't even got that far into it. I'm at the point where they've introduced the son. It's this rich dude who bought a team for his son.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes.
The son has barely made his appearance on camera.
You are going to only hear from him for a long time.
Oh boy.
And every minute of it, you're going to go, what? So
sounds great.
You don't need to know anything about hockey to watch this. It is not related to like the hockey aspect of it is. It's so interesting, and it's like an hour long. I think it's definitely worth your time. Get out there, watch Crimes and Penalties, and then the other thing that I'm going to mention, only because it's about the same length of time, is, and I know this would be a TVVB thing, but I just can't let it slide. Dark Side of the Ring is on season 3. So if you've been keeping up with it, season 3 has kicked off.
Oh, I'm so far behind.
Fantastic so far. But they knew they had a major hit with one of the recent episodes, and it is up on YouTube for free, the whole thing. So go look it up. It's called Dark Side of the Ring, the plane ride from hell. And it is one of these things that if you are a wrestling fan, and you have been one, you probably are familiar with this. You probably knew what happened or had heard bits and pieces about the rumor. This is going to corroborate a whole lot of things for you. It's also going to infuriate you. But it is, boy, oh boy, is it just this one. And and the one they did right after it. So The Plane Ride from Hell, and then the I don't remember what it's called. It was the story of Chris Canyon. Just, I mean, it's heartbreaking stuff. Like the Canyon one is heartbreaking in like for so many reasons. The Plane Ride from Hell one is infuriating for so many reasons. But yeah, go check those out for sure. And like I said, Untold, Crimes and Penalties on Netflix, and Tread on Netflix. Killdozer.
I will do that. I have a big long list. Now they're all on the list.
You're on the list.
You two can watch them. Everybody can watch them. And email us at podcast@bookclubformovies.com if you've got any wiener suggestions. Okay. If you have any suggestions for Halloween movies,
there you go.
Please, you can send them our way. And we will begin our probably, again, over month long. It seems like we always go over. It seems like we sneak in some November wieners. But it all starts next week, so come back next week for whatever movie we start with. And goodbye.
And we're clear.